And one of the most important parts that you talk about of this whole pyramid and what's the cherry on top is empathy, right? And you talk about the difference between apathy, sympathy, and then empathy. And this is a big thing that as a society we've moved through recently, where it's okay having sympathy or is it empathy? The big difference there. Which one is most vital for a conversation? For those of you that have been listening, you probably already know the answer to this because we have covered this. But what is the difference between the three, and how can we make sure that we are utilizing this one in the best way?
I'm going to take a risk here.
Okay.
Hope it works out. So I could answer that. And Will and I created this book and these tools from the breeding grounds of very difficult conversations. So we were helping people lead and be in dialogues in groups typically, but also in one-to-one dialogues with people about really soft, fluffy topics like long-term conflict, race relations, politics, gender, sexuality, etc., religion, for 90 minutes with the sole purpose of skipping headlines and actually understanding the other. And so I want to pick currently at the time of this recording, what's a very difficult topic. There's a really horrific school shooting in Texas. 19 elementary school students. And so I would say that when you get that news in your feed, you have one of three choices: apathy, sympathy, or empathy. On one hand, apathy, you can say, this stuff happens. I can't do anything about it. Let it go. On the second hand, sympathy, which I have found myself actually falling into in the last couple of days, is that I am so enmeshed in that situation as a dad of a young kid with a second kiddo on the way. I'm so enmeshed in that situation that I am just fallen into that emotion so much so that I can't be useful, that I'm just absolutely paralyzed by the horrific sadness that comes with that. And the third choice, we would argue, is empathy, which some people would say is putting your feet into somebody else's shoes. Me and Will would actually say that it's putting one of your feet into one of somebody else's shoes so that you can say, what is the world like for you? And also stay firmly rooted and grounded in your own reality. And so to say, oh my God, as I think about being a parent of one of those kids in Texas, I actually have chills as I'm recording this right now. And simultaneously, I'm able to recognize that I'm not in that situation, that I don't need to actually be swept all up in these emotions. And in fact, I can't be useful to someone. I can't be of service to somebody if I'm so enmeshed in their situation that I'm feeling exactly what they're feeling right now. It's a great service to not be feeling what somebody else is feeling to some degree and to just tap into a piece of that.
Then so the part for me that matters to this most, because I as you were describing that, I was going through, where do I stand in this situation that you just went over, right? And I was like, to be honest, I've taken this somewhat, not that I don't care, but apathetic approach, because it's like this happens over and over again. We see the exact same news cycle. Everyone cries about it. Everyone, but nothing actually gets done. So how can you use that empathy to actually make progress?
You'd have had to have paid me $1 million to be on this podcast if I had the answer to that question, I think. I don't say that lightly. I think one of the reasons that you are sitting here saying nothing ever happens, and many other people are saying, what the heck, this keeps happening and nothing ever changes. I think one of the reasons that's the case is because social change is remarkably complex. And as a society, our comfort with complexity is very low. And so it becomes either this or this. We must ban this. We must do that. It's just one thing, but actually there's every social issue. I wish it was really simple too, but it's incredibly complex. And so, and like any system, if you change one part of it, something else pops up, right? You make drugs illegal, people sell them illegally. You make drugs legal. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen research on what's happened as we've made pot legal in lots of states in the US, but Yeah, so man, I don't have the answer to that. What I
I'm not
know
telling you
is,
to solve the gun control issue. I just mean, like,
yeah,
how can
sure.
we use empathy to move forward? How can we use that empathy in conversations where it, becomes actionable, where that is the that's how we should feel about it.
Yeah, I think it simply is actually the power in having awareness of the three choices. I can
Yeah.
choose. It's not like I just am. I can choose actually to be apathetic, sympathetic, or empathetic. And if I'm empathetic and I have one foot grounded in my own reality, I actually have the choice to then do something and turn that into action. I would argue in sympathy and apathy, you don't even really, you haven't brought yourself up to the point where you even have the choice to do anything about it. And so you're
That's the
just stuck in
difference.
that place.
When you're in that conversation with someone, it's okay. And you talked about where this lady who has a friend who comes over from an abusive boyfriend all the time, from different abusive boyfriends, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, like, you okay? Like, how can I help you?" It's like, okay, like, what has he done this time? Like, who is he? Like, what can I do? Like, it's just a very different sort of approach to that conversation. Is kind of what you're saying, is like, yes, like, you care so much that it's okay. Well, then how can you get actionable about that conversation?
Yeah, and you mentioned girlfriend. I imagine you've had this encounter, and when you get married, I'm sure you will as well, to somebody. If you get married, it's very easy. I think particularly, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that men tend to be a little bit apathetic in the sense that they actually skip hearing and empathizing or sympathizing at all with their partner, and they jump straight into action mode.
I'm laughing because that's me to a T.
Yeah. I mean, you even kind of just, the reason I'm pausing here is because you kind of just did that in this moment. You're like, oh, empathetic listening, like abusive boyfriend, like, okay, like get over it. It's like, actually, empathy, if the judge of whether you've been empathetic and whether it's appropriate to move to a place of action is one very simple test. Does that person actually feel heard by you? Truly, very deeply heard in all parts of their being? Do they feel heard? Because if you try to recommend anything, if you try to take any action and you don't have one of your feet really in their shoes and you're actually feeling that, no matter how much it's frustrating you, you're just feeling that, then the actions that you go to take aren't going to be actually received. Nothing's going to change. For sure, nothing's going to change if we just recommend. Maybe that's actually why nothing's happening, is we recommend changes without the like real depth of empathy that's required to understand what it's like to lose a kid.
Yeah. Well, my girlfriend's going to thank you for this conversation. So,
my wife will laugh at me if she hears this conversation, because she'll be like, yeah, Chad, the irony of your own expertise, dude.
Yeah, people expect you to just be top notch with all this stuff.